Hey guys, welcome back to Election Center, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at Joe Biden's pathway to victory in the 2020 presidential election, and sort of what states are a part of that pathway to victory, and what is sort of his optimal strategy, what's the most realistic scenario in which we see Joe Biden becoming the next president of the United States, Joe Biden winning the 2020 election. So, just filling in these safe states as I talk. Joe Biden is already uh, widely the favorite to win the presidential election in terms of the data, in terms of his odds. A significantly higher odds than Donald Trump. Leading in pretty much all of the battleground states almost. A lot of these bigger ones, Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. These are all states that Joe Biden is leading. Texas, Joe Biden is leading. As well as the Rust Belt, Wisconsin, Michigan, and then Ohio. I think we really only see Donald Trump winning in a few battleground states here. Maybe Iowa, maybe a couple others. But yeah, pretty much we see Joe Biden leading in most of these battleground states here. As well as Arizona, these Nevada and Colorado, if you want to consider these battleground states, Nevada and Colorado. But yeah, we see Joe Biden already with a pretty big advantage over Donald Trump. So let's talk about now the states that are pretty much part of Joe Biden's pathway to victory. We're probably going to see in a Joe Biden victory, it's going to be because a lot of that because he wins the Rust Belt. Part of why Joe Biden has such a big advantage over Donald Trump right now is that he's really appealing to these blue collar voters in the Rust Belt, as well as his birth state here, Pennsylvania. So, these are big electoral vote states here, big battleground states that we really see Joe Biden with big leads in, 9 or 10 points in Wisconsin and Michigan. Think about a 7 point lead here in Pennsylvania. So, really, in a Joe Biden victory, these states are going to be a big part of that. I should have added, by the way, a victory in Virginia. That's kind of a given. We've seen this sort of former battleground state trending more and more to the left. But New Mexico here. I'll fill in some of these more safe states for Joe Biden: Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico. I refer to these a lot as ex-battleground states, just because they've been battleground states before, but nowadays they're trending and more to the left, in favor of the Democrats in presidential elections. It's been a while since a Republican won these states. I think 2004 was the last time that happened. So we already see Joe Biden here crossing the 270 mark. So really what happens is that Joe Biden wins these safer Democratic states. He picks up Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, and then Virginia, which are sort of left-leaning but kind of competitive states. And then we see Joe Biden winning here in the Rust Belt in Pennsylvania, which, where he really appeals to these blue-collar voters. So, in the most realistic pathway to victory for Joe Biden, this is pretty much what you have here, sort of the bare bones victory for Joe Biden. Almost kind of the bare bones result we're going to see for Joe Biden on election day. If Donald Trump wants to win, he has to make inroads into these states because, these states Joe Biden almost has kind of a lock on right now. And they together give him more than 270 electoral votes. But let's fill in some of the rest of these states as well as some of these red states. New Hampshire, we're going to see that go to Joe Biden if all of these other states go to Joe Biden. Let's talk about these other states going to Joe Biden that we already had filled in. If these go to Joe Biden, what other states are probably going to go to Joe Biden following suit? We're probably going to see Maine, all 4 electoral votes going to Joe Biden. That second congressional district a bit up for grabs, but I think in all likelihood going to go to Joe Biden. If these other states are also going to Joe Biden. Donald Trump narrowly won that second congressional district in 2016. I feel like we're not going to see that in 2020, though. But before we move on, actually, let's just fill in some of these red states here that Joe Biden won't win. These just aren't part of his pathway to victory. Some of these are a bit more competitive, but in all likelihood, I just don't see these states going to Joe Biden. But now we have some of these more competitive states left over. These are sort of the last states left over here. Joe Biden just 3 points behind Donald Trump in the latest Alaska poll. Really a surprise to a lot of people, but Nate Silver pointed out that the polling tends to be a bit overly favorable to the Democrats here in Alaska, with that result not normally playing out on election day. So we're probably going to go see that go to Donald Trump, as well as here in Montana. which Democrats sometimes have can be a bit more competitive in. It actually normally tends to vote for the Republican presidential candidate by a wide margin, but in other races, the Senate election, the gubernatorial election, it's a lot closer and more viable for the Democrats. But moving on, Joe Biden victory, we're probably going to see Florida go to Joe Biden. If these other states are going to Joe Biden, we're definitely going to see him win Florida, especially because he has a substantial lead there. It's really going to be hard for Donald Trump to make inroads in Florida as well as these other states. Yeah. So I should have filtered that in earlier. This is really the most realistic scenario, with Joe Biden winning. Because if he loses Florida or one of these other states here, that it would, for that to happen, that would have to mean that other stuff happened that really narrowed things up in a lot of these other states, and maybe his stable lock on these states wouldn't be there. So maybe has some more cracks in his wall of support. But in a Joe Biden victory, his most realistic pathway to victory, we're probably going to see him take Florida, as well as Pennsylvania and the Rust Belt. But filling in some of these other states, in a Joe Biden victory, we could see that include Texas. But in all, his most realistic pathway to victory does not include the state of Texas. Neither does it include the state of Georgia. These two southern states that are starting to trend blue, or have been trending blue for a while. But moving on here to Arizona, Joe Biden victory could very well include Arizona, the state of Arizona. But really the most realistic scenario is Arizona is going to go to Donald Trump because Joe Biden realizes a razor thin lead here in Arizona. It's narrowing up, and I think that along with Texas and Georgia, these are going to be two trending blue red states that are just going to be held on to by the Republicans with Donald Trump leading the ticket one more time. And then after that, we are going to see them become, even more battleground states or leaning Democrat states, even possibly. So I really think that, between Donald Trump tightening things up here in Arizona, as well as maybe a slight victory of Joe Biden in the presidential debates, that Donald Trump will carry the state of Arizona. We're probably going to see him carry Iowa as well. He won Iowa by 9 points in 2016. We're going to see him narrowly carry that state in 2020. Joe Biden actually could carry that second congressional district in Nebraska. We actually saw a couple of polls coming out of this second district here in Nebraska. They're on 538. They show him with substantial leads over Donald Trump. So, right now I think we're going to have to say they go to Donald Trump just because we don't really have enough data on this second congressional district. But it could very well go to Joe Biden if we see the right things play out. And finally, in the most realistic pathway to victory for Joe Biden, we see him carry the state of North Carolina, which he has a 3-point lead in. And if Donald Trump really does some serious narrowing down here in North Carolina, we could see that go red. But it's more likely to go blue. Same, and I think here in Ohio, he has a slight edge in terms of statistical odds over Donald Trump here in the state of Ohio. He is a 2-point leader, so you're in the state of Ohio, and I think he's slightly favored to beat Donald Trump here in the state of Ohio, just in terms of what I think the odds are here in Ohio. But yeah, this is Joe Biden's pathway to victory. So what we see here is if he can win the Rust Belt in Pennsylvania, which he's on track to do, together with these left-leaning battleground states, Nevada, Colorado, sort of New Mexico, and then Virginia, and then Minnesota, which is part of the Rust Belt. That's his pathway to victory, and then he has the South here to fall back on, which, if he has a 40% chance to win in Texas, 40% chance to win in Georgia, I know these states might vote linked together where they're both going to go to the same party, but that's technically, if those are the odds in these states, for instance, that's an 80% chance he wins technically either one of these states. So he has this South, this trending blue South, to fall back on if maybe his plan backfires here in the Rust Belt of Pennsylvania, some of these other areas. So, he has that to fall back on, as well as, possible victories in some of these closer red states, Missouri, Alaska, Montana. So Joe Biden really has a lot to fall back on if, for some reason, he starts failing in some of these other areas that are more likely to be part of his pathway to victory. But yeah, these are pretty much Joe Biden's pathways to victory in the 2020 presidential election. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to let me know your guys' take on this in the comments below, I'm going to enjoy seeing your guys' thoughts on this, and I'll reply to your comments, as many as I can. And so, yeah, I say once again, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next Election Center video. Bye!